All right. Well, we have reached the end of the regularly scheduled programming content. And if you'll indulge me for a few more minutes, I know it's been a wonderful, long conversation, but with time dilation, perhaps we'll be able to play around with that perception for the listeners. But if you'll indulge me, I'd like to go into the impossible with Dr. Shep Doeleman, answering my three patented, thrilling final questions of existential reality. The first question that I ask all my listeners is, what would you put in your ethical will, not your material will? So in the Hebrew tradition, which I partake in, there's a document called the Zava'ah, which is an ethical will, and it's meant to convey and articulate an inheritance of wisdom to not only your biological heirs, but your ideological heirs, of which there are many. They're not only for Jews, they're for President Obama made one, and you can find them all online. I want to ask you, what would you put in an ethical will encapsulating the wisdom of, kind of the inheritance that you'd most like to leave to those that come after you?
It's really a wonderful question. A few things come to mind. One is, it sounds a little odd, but don't take no for an answer. I mean, no is always an opportunity, and you can do it in a nice way. You can do it in an ethical way, but you can always push the boundaries. And as long as you do it in the right way, a no can be very powerful. So you can't do this. No, I'm going to try to do this anyway. So it's very important to understand that. The other thing I'd say is allowing yourself to depend on others is a very important thing if you want to do something really grand. I mean, you can't do everything yourself, and believing in and creating an environment for other people to do their work is a very important legacy.
Yeah,
so those are the things that I'm thinking of at the moment.
Okay, that is wonderful. Let us go to the second of the thrilling three final questions. A kind of callback to the progenitor of the name of this podcast, Arthur C. Clarke. You'll find out about why that is in just a bit, but Arthur C. Clarke, in his famous movie that was turned into a movie, right? His book that was turned into a movie, A Space Odyssey. There are these mysterious monoliths that kind of populate the universe on Earth and on the moon and space, et cetera, et cetera. And we're not really sure what they are. They could be a warning, they could be a weapon, they could be a time capsule, which is the way I like to think about them. And I'll ask you, if you had a time capsule that would outlive you, not past your mortal coil, years of 120 in the biblical sense. But if you were able to reach, out to 1 billion years, not you personally, but you could put anything, any information whatsoever on a monolith that would last for so long, what would it be? What would it comprise, scientifically speaking?
Is this like a bit of information that goes in there? Yeah,
it would be, you could engrave it, you could put a CD-ROM on it, you could put a correlator tape on it you could do whatever you want with it. It's going to last for 1 billion years, and it's meant to convey what human beings had accomplished, not just you maybe specifically, but what the human civilization had accomplished to some futuristic alien species.
Wow. Well, I guess, I would put an image of the light bending around a black hole with the right proportions so that the people many, many billions of years from now would know that we had understood that light bends around a black hole. Because I'm sure that black holes would be understood by alien civilizations to be as crazy as we think they are. And so giving them some understanding that we knew what those were and that we had imaged one, I think they would look at that and say, they had it going on. They knew what was going on.
They accomplished something. All right, here we go. The final thrilling third question, which relates to one of Arthur C. Clarke's famous laws. He had a law that you probably heard: any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So you and EHT are performing a type of magic. He also said something that I love to pull out on my department chair from time to time. He said, for every expert, there's an equal and opposite expert. And then he said his third law was the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible. That's the origin of the name of this podcast. And so I want to ask you kind of advice to your former self. What mysterious aspect of your life perplexed you as a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, and yet eventually provided you with great clarity and sort of an inciting incident that led to a breakthrough to make you who you are today? So advice to your former self. What kind of pushed you into the impossible?
Well, I guess I would say that this realization that failure is okay, that you really do need to fail in order to understand what it is you want to do and how you want to do it and what's possible. I mean, if you're not failing, then you're not testing the boundaries. And I think it's hard for people to fail. It's really difficult because we're always told, don't fail, like don't mess up, do this, eat your breakfast, like I failed and I didn't eat my breakfast. But in your career, failing is so important, and to embrace that. It's antithetical. It's kind of antithetical, but to embrace that leads to a lot of very, very interesting things. So that's my. If I had to go back and talk to myself, I'd say fail more.
I always get tickled by the fact that there's this Google Ngram search where you can search on phrases and how often they've been used and the context of different phrases. That if you search the phrase in quotes, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And then you ask, well, what sentence came right before that sentence? And it's always, I failed, I got fired, I lost this, this prize, whatever. And because of that, it leads to great growth. And, there's a saying, I forget, maybe it's a rabbi, maybe it's Yogi Berra, who knows the difference. And it's, there is no success without failure. You really cannot achieve greatness without risking and that also entails failure as part of the success process. So Shep Doeleman, an incredible interview, a really wonderfully vulnerable side of you, which will delight my audience, but also very technical, nerdy, and fun, which will delight the other half of my audience. So I do want to express my deep gratitude on behalf of myself and my listeners for going into the impossible with yours truly and spending so much of your valuable time on me. And I want to wish you the best in your success and offer you our deepest gratitude for opening with your colleagues this phenomenal view of the universe.
Well, thanks very much, Brian. It's been a pleasure.